Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2022 Jeep Cherokee, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver. Before we get into that though, let's just take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. So, having a hitch on a Jeep makes perfect sense. You know, it looks right at home, these accept accessories very well, and it's going to open up your opportunities on what you're going to be able to do with your Cherokee, whether you're wanting to pull a trailer around or use a bike rack, a cargo carrier, something like that. This is definitely going to get the job done. There are a handful of hitches available for the Cherokee, depending on what model you have, of course. And you know, there's an eTrailer one that's going to be pretty much identical to the Curt one that we have here today. The main difference with that is it's going to have more of a matte black style finish. I personally like it a little bit better. I think it matches the plastic bumper a little bit better, but that's just my opinion. With this hitch, as well as the eTrailer one, they're going to fit a lot of the different types of submodels because, you know, there's a lot of different styles of Cherokee. So, you know, whether you have the Trailhawk, more of a base model one, a limited one, the Latitude, the X model like we have here today, the hitch is going to fit all of those. So it sounds like pretty much all the submodels out there, you should be in pretty good shape. The hitch is going to have a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, extremely common size, ton of different things are going to work with it. It's going to use that standard 5/8 pin and clip. One doesn't come with the hitch. If you need one, you can always grab it here at eTrailer. Or a lot of times too, if you end up buying a new accessory, they'll come with one, so there's something to think about. Safety chain openings are going to be easy to get to, be a loop style, and give us more than enough space to use just about any size hook that our trailer might have on it. As far as weight capacities go, it's going to have some really good numbers. Maximum gross tongue weight will be 675 pounds. It's the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. So you'll be able to use any size bike rack or cargo carrier that you'd want to, for example. As far as maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, that's going to be 4,500 pounds. It's the amount of weight pulling on the hitch. The weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have in or on it. This can be used with a weight distribution system, which is a separate component, and what happens when you use that, it's got to keep your trailer and your Jeep level whenever you're towing it down the road. So pretty popular on campers and enclosed trailers, things like that. If you use it though, the capacities will increase. Maximum gross tongue weight will go up to 750 pounds, and maximum gross trailer weight will increase to 5,500 pounds. If you do plan on pulling a trailer, you're going to want the lights to work on it, and to accomplish that, you can always grab some custom fit trailer wiring that will accomplish that. And I always like to recommend too, it's never a bad idea just to grab your Cherokee's owner's manual. That way you can check in there and make sure that it can handle all the weight safely. We can grab a couple of measurements. These will help you figure out what type of accessories will work best. From the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be about 14 inches. Keep in mind though, that could change a little bit depending on your submodel. Like I said, we have the X, but in our case, if we were to hook up to a trailer, chances are pretty good we can get a ball mount that has a rise in the shank, probably at 2 to 4 inch range. And if you can get an accessory that has a rise, probably be better off, buy you a little more ground clearance there. If you go from the center of the hitch pin hole to the furthest edge of our bumper here, that's going to be about 6 inches, and you can use that to help figure out that if any folding type accessories you might have can be stored upright without hitting the back of your Jeep's bumper. When it comes down to it, a great all-around hitch. You know, it's going to let you get the job done regardless on what you're trying to do. As far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad, pretty straightforward. Sometimes everything's a little tight, you know, not a ton of room to work with, but something you're only going to have to do one time, right, and then you're good to go. So if you'd like to hang around, feel free to. We'll go ahead, pull into the garage, and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath our Jeep, and we are going to need to temporarily lower and take off the very back of our exhaust to give us some more space to work. So a little bit closer towards the middle. If you want to take a strap and just run it from side to side, tighten it up. That way this portion will have a little bit of support. Right there on our exhaust pipe, we're going to have a clamp, and there's a 15 millimeter head nut. And you want to loosen this up quite a bit. You don't have to completely remove that nut. Just back it off. That way the clamp will loosen up, and when we're ready, these two pipes will be able to separate. On the side of our muffler, we're going to have these exhaust hanger brackets. There's two 13mm head bolts you can pull out. And I want to mention from this point on, whatever we do to one side of the vehicle, we'll also do it to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. So go ahead and get these removed. Pop this portion of our exhaust off now. And so, a little bit of finesse, kind of just work it around. It'll drop down and we can set it to the side for now. On some Jeeps, you might have this wiring that runs right through here on the passenger side. If yours has it, we're just going to kind of pop it out of the way. There's a couple of fasteners like this. You can take a trim tool or a flathead screwdriver, just kind of pry behind them. And that way we have a little more working room here. Some Jeeps are going to be set up this way like ours is, others not. What I mean by that, ours is going to have 3 bolts in the frame here, and we're going to pull them out, hold on to them. That's what we're going to use to actually install our hitch. If yours does not have these, the hitch comes with some additional hardware that you can, fish wire up into place into the frame and allow you to have some attachment points there. So if yours is set up like that, refer to the instructions. It's pretty straightforward, but in our case, we got the bolts. So I'm going to pull these out with a 21mm socket. It's going to be kind of tricky to see, but you see on our frame rail here, there's a bead of sealer that runs up. On the inside, we don't have to worry about this one, but it's exactly the same on the outside of our frame. And if we scrape that off, it'll make it a lot easier to get the hitch up into place. So it comes off pretty easy. You can just use a scraper, screwdriver, whatever you got. Even though we're going to be using 3 of our factory bolts, we are going to end up using one of the ones that they give us. So you can take a pull wire, put a spacer block over it, and thread on a carriage bolt. We're going to feed that up into the frame, as well as the spacer block, and drop it back down. With an extra set of hands, you can get our hitch up into position. You do want to take that pull wire, feed it down through the appropriate hole in the hitch, and then we'll raise it on up. Get everything to line up here. And we want to get at least 1 bolt started on each side. And that way the hitch will support itself while we work on the rest of it. Once you have these 2 bolts in, you can remove this pull wire and take a flange nut, get that started hand tight, and then if you remember we had 2 factory bolts up here. The reason I like to pull this one out is when you're trying to get these in, sometimes the hitch and everything just don't quite line up. So if you need to, when you're trying to get them in, you can take a screwdriver or pry bar or something and kind of pry that around to get everything to line up. But, with all those going, we'll take that bolt and reinstall it in here. With all of our hardware in place and in tight, we can snug it down. So 21mm for those, and we'll use a 3/4 inch socket for our new hardware there. I need to make sure and come back with a torque wrench and tighten down all of the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. Once you have everything torqued, you can take that wiring and kind of snap it back into place. One of them isn't going to reach its holder, but not a big deal as long as it's up there good and not going to fall in the exhaust. Which brings me to my next point. Now we can take our exhaust, reinstall it the opposite way that we removed it. Get that exhaust slid back on. And raise it into position. Remove that strap from earlier. And with that done, that will finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2022 Jeep Cherokee.